The fifth man has now been identified as Alex Weimer Lee. He was the fifth man that was identified in this picture that was at the home that night of Jordan Willis in Kansas City, Missouri, that left the lives of 3 men dead in the backyard. So before we get into this video, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing to keep following this story, as well as hit that like and the share button. So now let's get started into this video. So the families are struggling to understand and confused and of course shocked to what has happened and transpired. So on January 7th, what was supposed to be a game of watching the Chiefs turned into 3 dead bodies being found on January 9th in the backyard of Jordan Willis's home. So this is Jordan Willis's home, and Alex, David, Jordan, Clayton, and Ricky were all going to be enjoying a Chiefs game that night, drinking beer and having fun. But that's not what happened. And now this mystery has really grappled the families and the nation about what really happened that night of January 7th. So this is Clayton McGeaney and his fiancée of 12 years, April Mahoney. Now, after not hearing from Clayton, she decided to take it upon herself after hearing nothing back from Jordan Willis or anyone about what happened to Clayton McGeaney. She went down to the home to check out where Clayton was. So after knocking on the door and hearing nothing and nobody coming to the door, April decides to take it upon herself. In the very right hand side of this video, the bottom window, that's where she broke into the bottom to get in and to see what was going on. So she proceeds in the home, and again, still there's no Jordan Willis to be found or heard from, and then she spots a dead body on the porch in the backyard. Now there she ends up calling the police. Now the police come over, and then Jordan Willis, he comes out in his boxers nonchalantly with a wine glass that supposedly was full of water, and had no idea, or acted like he had no idea of what was going on. The police had not only saw and recovered that one body that was on the porch, but there was also 2 more bodies that were in the backyard area. Again, this would be Clayton McGeaney, this would be Ricky Johnson, as well as David Harrington. Now let's take a listen to what David Harrington's mother had to say to News Nation.
Did the detective mention anything about drugs at all?
No, he didn't, but he's with the drug force. So, that tells you a little bit there. And
I want to, go ahead.
I want people to know that whatever comes out, whatever happened, these 3 men, they had families, they were hardworking, they were community people, they loved their lives, they had great lives. My son, he was an avid skier, he was a coach for baseball team. I mean, he had a full life. He wasn't a person that sat around and wasted his life. This should have never happened. Not to my son, not to Clayton, not to Ricky. They all deserve for this investigation to dig deep and to find out, because I believe Jordan does know. And I'm asking Jordan tonight to please come forward and tell the truth, because he does know what happened that night. He was there, and he's the last one alive. He's the only one that can tell us and give all of our families some peace. And I know he might be scared. I know he is probably sad, but he has to know. I'm sorry. He has to know that
it's understandable.
That we need answers. We need to know. We need to know the truth, and that nothing but the truth is going to work. And he won't get any rest. He won't feel good until he tells the truth. And I believe there was a lot that happened that night, and I believe he knows exactly what happened.
Jennifer, what do you think happened? What do you think is the cause of the deaths of the 3 men, including your son, David?
I don't know. I mean, everybody's speculating, that it was drugs. It could have been. I don't know. And if it was, then I want to know where it came from, because I know that the 3 guys did not have money to get anything. They were all, trying to take care of bills and their families. And at that point, none of them had money for that. And the only person that did was Jordan. So if anything was provided, it would have had to been by him. And that's
Jennifer
where I
Marquez,
think
I am just
that this may be
I'm so
going.
sorry that I'm just so sorry that you're going through this. This is just so traumatic, and you're right. There are families involved, people like you who are grieving and are grieving in a mystery. I would love to have you come back as we continue to follow the story. We will dig on it. We will absolutely dig on this. It will not be left unsolved. And I wish you the best, to not just you, but to your extended family as well, as you maneuver through this very difficult process. Thank you for doing this tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jennifer makes a really good point. Everyone needs to realize there are grieving families. While everyone else is trying to solve a mystery, there is tragedy that they are living every single minute. And we will continue to follow that story.
So there's absolutely many strange things that have happened within this case that just don't make sense. And of course, everyone is waiting on the answers of the reports for the toxicology and autopsy. Now, please, if you are not subscribed to this channel, consider subscribing. Keep on following this case. Hit that like button, and we thank you for your support. So here we have this mother for David Harrington that's pleading with, of course, Jordan Willis to talk to her, give her some answers, to know what happened that day, even if he's scared. But what does he do? He just lawyers up. Now, then you have Alex Weimer Lee. Now, he has opted to talk to family members to let them know about what happened that day from his knowledge, even with a lawyer. So why isn't Jordan Willis talking? Why isn't he, considering he's supposed to be a friend to these people, why is he not talking and letting him know if he's so innocent and did nothing wrong? Now, of course, we're not accusing Jordan Willis of having anything to do with these three men's death, but is there definitely some questions that need to be answered? And is there inconsistencies in the story and by his lawyer? So let's dive into that a bit as well. Now, let's take a look at this article from dailymail.com. So basically, Jordan Willis is saying, hey, I waved them off at 2 a.m. before sleeping on the couch and spending the next 2 days inside the house. Now, what happened to the fact that he actually went upstairs to the bedroom and fell asleep? Again, some inconsistencies that hopefully we'll find out eventually the truth. So not thinking of anything of the fact that their cars were still outside. So the scientist has now vanished from the 4-bedroom rental home in the Northland District of Kansas City, Missouri, where Clayton McGeeney, 36, David Harrington, 37, and the father of 3, Ricky Johnson, 38, were discovered at around 10 p.m. on January 9th in freezing temperatures. Now, Lee, a 37-year-old flooring contractor, lives in a rental home in another part of the city. When DailyMail.com arrived to ask him questions about the fateful night, a man answering an intercom doorbell claimed he wasn't there and could not discuss January 7th. The man added, Alex isn't here right now, and he isn't handling any media questions. So Lee's social media contains many photos of him with Harrington, McGeeney, and Johnson, including one where he's in a living room with the latter two, all dressed in the chief's regalia in another apparent watch party. The fifth man, who maintained his close relationships with the victim and Willis from the Park Hill High School, has a rap sheet that includes drug offenses DailyMail.com can disclose. Now here they're talking about Alex, okay? So Alex Weimer Lee. This is the fifth guy that they have said now that has been identified. Now, his criminal record reveals 3 drug incidents in 2005 when he was 19 and lived close to his former high school. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges, unlawful use of drug paraphernalia, and one of possessing up to 35 grams of marijuana, according to records. Now, Lee was given 20 hours of community service for one of the drug paraphernalia charges, but failed to complete it. He then was sentenced to 7 days in jail, records show. 7 years later, while in Aspen, Colorado, he was charged with a felony for tampering with drug evidence after another man was arrested at a nightclub. Now, Lee was accused of grabbing 2 baggies of ecstasy that were dropped on the venue's floor when the accused dealer was seized by police. He told officers he swallowed the contents of one bag and tried to hide the other, according to a report in the Aspen Daily News. So, again, the fifth man, front left, which is right here, and his attorney, Andrew Talge, the criminal defense lawyer, said his client turned up at around 7 p.m. that night and left at midnight when the 4 other men were watching Jeopardy. And again, here's the home of Jordan Willis that he has since moved out of. And this was a rental. This, of course, is Alex Weimer Lee. So he goes by the name of Lee for the last name. So evidently, he pleaded guilty to the misdemeanor counts as part of a plea deal and was given 2 years of unsupervised probation. Judge Gail Nichols told him that the Pitkin County District Court, "I think you're learning a lesson in a very hard way." Meanwhile, DailyMail.com can also reveal the identity of the heartbroken fiancé who raised the alarm at the Willis home after the construction work partner Clayton McGeaney failed to come home. So as stated earlier in the video, you guys, April Mahoney, within a 12-year relationship with, of course, Clayton McGeaney, she's 34, desperately broke into the property in a quiet tree-lined street on Tuesday night after Willis had not responded to calls or visits from anxious victims or family members. She was confronted with the horror of finding a man, DailyMail.com now knows to be David Harrington, dead on the outside porch. She called the police and officers discovered her fiancé and Johnson dead in the backyard. Willis answered the door to cops in his underwear and was clutching a wine glass. Mahoney confirmed to DailyMail.com that she was previously unidentified fiancé, but she was too traumatized to talk about what she discovered and her partner. More than 200 mourners packed a local funeral home on Saturday to bid farewell to the father of 15-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. April and Clayton were together for 12 years. Clayton's uncle Jim McGeaney told DailyMail.com they were devoted to each other, and Clayton was living his best life. He had a few problems in his earlier years, but he had sorted them out and was living life to the full. He was truly a good example to everyone. He'd get up early just to see the sun rise across the lake. He had a bad motorcycle accident 2 years ago on his Harley Davidson in the Ozarks and was in the hospital for several weeks. He was a fighter. Kansas City police insist the deaths are not being treated as homicides. Willis allowed his home to be searched and he went to be interviewed without a lawyer present. However, Clayton McGeaney's construction boss, Uncle Jim, 70, trashed Willis's version of events. In a message to the HIV research scientist, he blasted, "Man up, dude. Just man up. You know what happened at the house with your so-called 3 buddies that you've known since high school, and it's going to be found out. So come forward, let us know what happened. Let the families, let the city, let the people know what happened if you did or did not do anything that caused their deaths. Don't just hide. Don't move away from the house or whatever you may have done to cover up your mistake or your whatever. If someone died in my house, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to run. I'm going to find out what happened if you're innocent. If I had 3 friends who died in my backyard, I definitely want to find out how they died, what happened to my best buddies. Something's going on. Something's getting covered up." The uncle conceded drug taking could have been a factor. It can't be ruled out. It's absolutely a possibility. He said, "Because of their age group, I would leave it in the picture, but Clayton wasn't even a heavy drinker." He also ridiculed early speculation that the trio froze to death, although records do indicate temperatures were below freezing at that time during the night, which was about 1 degree Celsius and 33 degrees Fahrenheit. "So I do not believe that they froze to death," he said. "It wasn't cold enough. At 2 a.m. on Monday, they were alive. Tuesday, the temperature wasn't low enough for them to freeze to death." Yet the police told family members that they had to wait for their bodies to thaw out before they can do an autopsy. The bodies couldn't possibly have been frozen solid, like a steak in your freezer, that many hours. You're looking at 2 a.m. Monday to 10 p.m. on Tuesday. McGeaney attacked the police response to the baffling deaths, comparing the reaction he believes would happen if animals had been discovered dead instead of 3 healthy men in their 30s. "If 3 dead dogs were found at somebody's backyard, somebody's going to get in trouble," he said. "Somebody's going to be arrested before the police leave. They're going to call in the animal control. They're going to do all this stuff. And someone would have gone to jail that day and the police would say, 'Oh, there's something going on here.' How did the dogs die? Willis's attorney, John Picerno, had said he has nothing to hide. He went to the police station and spoke with the officers without a lawyer present. He allowed them to search his house. These were his friends. He bought tickets for them, all to go to the next Chiefs game. He didn't want any harm to come to any of them. There was no ill will. He absolutely had nothing to do with their deaths. The attorney said Willis did not hear the victim's loved ones banging on his door because he sleeps wearing headphones and has a fan on. He did not see anxious Facebook messages until after the police arrived. So this face message says, I was going to sleep on this and wait to post this to tomorrow, but I can't. This man, Jordan Willis, was inside his home alive while my friends were dead in his yard for Lord knows how long. He knew people were going to be looking for them. He read messages of people searching for him. My husband banged on his door for 20 minutes. My friend banged on his door and then busted a window and yelled and announced her presence while she's inside and still nothing from him. Then the cops came 10 minutes later, and he comes out nonchalant in his boxers with an empty wine glass in his hand. I was there, folks. I saw him and have pics. Nothing is adding up. Dave, Clay, and Ricky need and deserve justice. They didn't deserve this. And then another post underneath that one was Lindsay Ray Baldwin saying, these were my friends. 3 men don't just go outside and freeze to death, while the owner of the home and their friend stays inside, and only when police show up, come outside in boxers like you've just been chilling for 2 days while your 3 friends are dead outside. Make noise here, people. This story is not okay. He had been contacted for over 24 hours prior about where our friends were, and also their cars still parked at the house, and didn't reply to anyone. So the 5th man, Lee, has also hired attorney Andrew Dalge. The criminal defense lawyer said his client turned up at the house at 7 p.m. and left at midnight when 4 other men were watching Jeopardy! On Tuesday, Lee texted Willis after April Mahoney and Ricky Johnson's mother had contacted him inquiring about their loved ones, added the attorney. Talge had not returned repeated calls by Daily Mail. Crucial toxicology reports on the victims' bodies will not be ready for at least another 4 weeks, DailyMail.com can reveal. The tests are being carried out by the Frontier Forensics Midwest, a privately owned forensic and autopsy facility that provides services for authorities in Kansas and Missouri. One of its investigators told us they take at least 6 to 8 weeks, and it's been less than 2. Any information that is released for them will go through Kansas City Police. Police Captain Jake Bakina stated that the bodies were found. First and foremost, this case is 100% not being investigated as a homicide. There have not been any arrests or charges, and no one is in custody. The resident at the house was cooperative with detectives the day the deceased were discovered. As Willis remains out of sight, DailyMail.com knocked on the suburban home of his 74-year-old father Raymond to inquire after him. The parent yelled, F off, before slamming the door. However, the scientist's beloved dogs were there. I do think that they got the name mixed up, and it's not Raymond, the father's name. I believe it's Rodney, and he's 74 years old. So who is Jordan R. Willis? Well, his name is Jordan Reed Willis, PhD, and he is a senior principal scientist at IAVI Neutralizing Antibody Center, Chef Lab, La Jolla, Kansas City, Missouri. Now, he of course does antibodies, vaccines, bioinformatics, deep learning, synthetic biology, etc., etc. So I think, like most of you guys, that when we heard that 3 people were dead in the backyard of his home that he was renting out and then has since moved, that as soon as you heard scientists and 3 men in the backyard, you couldn't help but become a little suspicious if there was some sort of concoction that was somehow created. Now, anyways, it says, what is one thing that people would be surprised to know about you? And he goes, I don't know if this is a surprise anymore, but I'm a dog fanatic. I have 2 pit bull mixes I got from a rescue shelter, and they are the light of my life. They are named Sadie and Daisy. I love to take them for walks and go to the park, and I even name my software packages after them. Okay, now let's listen to a little bit of what his lawyer Personero had to say.
Weeks ago, 3 men were found dead outside of a home in this neighborhood in the Northland. With still so many questions about the investigation, an attorney for the homeowner wants to set the record straight.
And wasn't aware of that they were missing until the police knocked on his door Tuesday night.
John Paserno, an attorney retained by the homeowner, says the guys were hanging out at the house after getting tickets to the Chiefs game.
He told them that he was going to crash, get some sleep on the couch. He said goodbye to the other 3. And it was his belief at the time that they left outside through the front door, and that's the last time that he saw them.
Paserno said his client works from home and had no idea they were missing or that they were deceased on his porch and in his backyard.
This has hit him hard. If they were in distress, he certainly would have helped them.
What is your response to that?
I think it's just all lies to cover up his tracks. That's what I believe. I mean, how do you not know that there's 3 bodies in the back porch and there's 2 cars in front of your house? It makes no sense to me.
They all deserve to have this fully checked out. Things are not adding up.
The mother of Ricky Johnson's child and the mother of David Harrington think there's a lot more to the story.
I don't believe anybody's innocent in this. My son was a grown man, and I love him dearly, and this is tearing me apart. I have to fight for him now.
Nothing makes sense. Nothing. I want justice. It's heartbreaking. My daughter keeps saying, I miss my dad. And it's just, my daughter would never see her father again.
We now know there was a 5th person who left the home earlier that evening. The homeowner has since moved out, but did consent for police to search the home. This remains a death investigation, not a homicide.
So in an interview with News Nation on Friday night, Paserno said his client had left the home sporadically on Monday and Tuesday. He reversed course on Monday, saying that what he said was poorly phrased and offered a new explanation. What I meant to say on News Nation is that he left. He was sleeping, and he left his bedroom sporadically, he said. Okay, you guys, so take this as a grain of salt since I do not have the actual proof or article of where this came from. But I got this from Web Sleuths, and it says, another interesting statement because the 5th man had said that Jordan Willis's dogs were at the house that night, but his attorney Personero had said the father had his dogs. So that would lead one to think that, of course, Jordan Willis either went out at some point and dropped them off, or someone came and picked them up. Paserno said his client never left the house from Sunday's gathering to watch the Chiefs game until after police arrived on Tuesday night. Now, I just want to reiterate that Jordan Willis has not been charged with any crimes in connection to these 3 men. In fact, they are deeming it as non-foul play at this time and are saying it is not a homicide. So now let's take a look at what Jordan Willis is feeling and saying. This is the man who hosted the fateful Kansas City Chiefs watch party where 3 men froze to death. Now, of course, we don't have the toxicology report or the autopsy to say that, so this article has basically to me made an error in saying that, but yet it has been speculated that Jordan Willis had said that, oh, they must have froze to death. Now, he's saying that he is devastated by the loss of his pals and very depressed by the nationwide accusations that he may have had something to do with the deaths. Not only is the whole country accusing him of murdering his friends without factual details, evidence, or any charges at this time, but he also lost 3 close friends, a source is saying to Fox Nation. Now, he didn't get to say goodbye or go to their funerals due to the circumstances of these wild speculations and accusations. No one seems to be willing to wait for the results of the toxicology report or wait for any facts from the police department from a case that is still under investigation and to make these speculations. The source slammed rumors that Willis was telling friends that David Harrington, 37, Ricky Johnson, 38, and Clayton McGeeney, 36, had frozen to death in the days leading up to the tragic January 9th discovery. Willis's own family reportedly learned of the tragedy through media and weren't sure whether their loved one was among the dead, according to the source. So, the HIV scientist spent 48 hours asleep on the couch next to a loud fan while wearing noise-canceling headphones, blissfully unaware of the flurry of calls and messages of loved ones trying to locate the missing men. Johnson and Harrington's family have fiercely slammed Willis's story, even speculating that a crime could have been tied to Willis's career as a scientist with the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative's Neutralizing Antibody Center at Chef Lab. The mad scientist's agenda is absolutely ridiculous, the source close to Willis' family said. So here we have, of course, David Harrington. And then we have Ricky Johnson. And then we have Clayton McGeeney. So the source continued to say that the fact that he's a scientist is irrelevant. Well, it's probably important to note, and maybe a reason for with these families and are saying that they don't know Jordan. Jordan went to high school with several of these guys. After college, he spent probably close to 10 years in Nashville and San Diego doing his graduate and postdoctorate work, the source said. He moved back to KC, of course, Kansas City, 4 or 5 years ago, and at some point reconnected with his high school friends. The diehard fans routinely shared pictures of themselves decked out in the Chiefs regalia to watch games and were planning on going to a January 13th game with tickets Willis bought for the group, which wasn't the first game he'd taken them all this season, the source had said. Now, Willis' dad previously told the Post that his son has treated his friends to a game just one day before the tragedy. When asked how Willis could have spent 2 days inside his home without his dog alerting him to the dead bodies, the source told Fox Nation the pet simply wasn't home. Although he belongs to Willis, the animal is somewhat of a therapy dog for Willis's father. Now, who's the source said suffering from Alzheimer's disease and spent most of his time at the family house. Willis had been living in a nearby rental home until the tragedy and the subsequent accusations, but was driven out by what his lawyer described as the fear of retaliation. And this is the home right here. This house was all over the news. Multiple people driving by every day. People are threatening him on the internet, and everyone knows where this house is thanks to the news coverage. After the police cleared the house and the story became public, Jordan moved out as his privacy and safety were at risk. He's still cooperating with police, the source said, describing Willis as a good guy who loves his friends. This vitriol is awful, and I think people are afraid to speak up for him because of how vicious people are with these speculations. Police have emphatically said that the case is not being investigated as a homicide and that Willis is not being treated as a suspect. Toxicology reports for the dead men are still pending, which will affirm or deny law enforcement suspicions that they have overdosed on drugs, making themselves vulnerable to the freezing overnight conditions.
I've heard a lot of terrible things about him. I don't know the truth in it. I don't have anything nice to say about him. And honestly, I don't even know if I've even heard. I don't think I've ever heard any stories about Jordan at all. I think I've heard the name and that's it.
Okay, you guys, so I've been working on this video like literally all day, and there's still more that I want to do, but I'm going to end this video and leave it at basically part 1 because there's more that I want to say. Please hit that subscribe button, get the notification so when we do drop the next video and you're following this case, it'd be very much appreciated. Also, if you guys feel or want to help support this channel, please use the PayPal or the Coffee app, or perhaps you want to use the Super Thanks. But we thank you guys so much for your love and support. Check out the merchandise, give this video a like and a share, and we will see you in the next video.